I normally, this time of year, will do some stories about murders that have taken place or the disappearances of people that have taken place around the Christmas holiday. I have a couple of those ready to go. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get them all up on the channel before Christmas, but today, before I get into anything else, I wanted to do a quick update on the Amber Spradlin situation. Once again, it's only been about a week since I posted, but there's been another change, and this is from Appalachian News Express in Pike County, December 12th. Special Judge Eddie Coleman issued an order December 12th, further reducing the bond for the man who is being held and accused of killing Amber Spradlin in Floyd County. In the order, Judge Coleman ordered that Michael M.K. McKinney's bond is to be set at $5 million, which may be secured by the combination of a $500,000 property bond, requiring the posting of real property of a value of $1,005,000. This is 10% cash, $450,000. He was originally ordered held on a $5 million bond after being charged with murder in connection with the 2023 stabbing death of Amber Spradlin in the home of his father, where he also lived. The attorney argues that M.K. McKinney does not represent a threat to the public, is not a flight risk, and his pretrial risk assessment report shows his score was the lowest possible. The attorney wrote in a filing that no defendant could post the reduced bond that was set earlier this month. The law is crystal clear that a court should not set a bond that has reason to believe a defendant cannot post, which basically just means that the court should not set a bond that is unreasonable for a defendant to be able to afford. Well, there's a lot of people out there in the public who are very upset about this, because there are people sitting in jail right now on a small bond, and just because their financial circumstances won't allow them or their family, maybe their family doesn't own a property outright, maybe they still have a lien on this property, or maybe their property isn't valued enough to be able to meet that bond requirement. So those people have to remain in jail. And this is the second time that the attorney for M.K. McKinney has asked the judge to reduce the bond in order for them to be able to financially meet that. And the judge did that. And this has upset a lot of people, because basically they're giving one person the opportunity. This is public opinion. Not everybody agrees with this. This is just the outcry, that this judge seems like he is making special exceptions. And I don't want to badmouth Judge Coleman. I don't want to say that he's doing anything wrong. He's allowing this guy to have the opportunity to come up with the bond money. And yet other people are arguing. Some people wish that they could also get that opportunity. They wish that a judge would allow them to have their bond further reduced. Now, further conditions of the bond require that M.K. McKinney is under house arrest, and he is not permitted to live with his co-defendants, who is his father, Michael McKinney II, and family friend, Josh Mullins. Now, these two men are also on house arrest. And once again, public outcry says they have been given exceptions, if you want to call it that. Now, here's one thing that has upset a lot of people. Before this all happened, before Michael McKinney, the dentist, was placed on house arrest, before any of this, it was said that he would go to his dental office 2 or 3 days a week and see patients, or he would go work a few hours each day, 2 or 3 days a week. After he was in jail and wanting to be released on house arrest and allowed to go to work, he asked the judge for 8 to 9 hours per day, 5 days per week, and he got that. And a lot of people say that's unfair because before this, he didn't work that many hours a week. He wasn't at his office. His family's restaurant, the Brick House, which is owned by, I guess it's a family owned business, it is operated by the mother of M.K. McKinney. This is Michael McKinney's wife or ex-wife, and it's right next door to his dental office. So he was spending quite a bit of time over there as well, according to people in Floyd County. And a lot of people, were outraged and upset about this. Josh Mullins, who was the other co-defendant, both of these two men have been accused of cleaning up the crime scene, removing evidence. They removed cameras. This is what was said. They helped MK to cover up this crime, and they were both charged with that. And Josh Mullins also works for Michael McKinney at his dental practice, and was also allowed to go to the dental office each day and attend school and classes and things of that nature. So they were both given a little bit more leniency than some people believe that they deserved, or that some people who have a family member who's been on house arrest, that their family member has been given. And a lot of people says it's because these people have connections. We all know the story that when Amber Spradlin was murdered in that house that night, the next morning before 911 was called. And for those of you who do know the story, you know that 911 was called around 5 a.m. in what was supposedly a separate call, a separate situation. M.K. McKinney called 911 over Amber's friend Roy Kidd, who was there at the house as well. He wanted the police to come and get him. He just wanted him out of the house. He said he was drunk, belligerent, he had gotten hurt. I don't know if they'd gotten into a fight or what exactly happened. But the dad, Michael McKinney, takes the phone and says, no, we don't need police. We don't need an ambulance. Everything's under control. And Prestonsburg City Police didn't send anybody out. Nobody went to the house that night. A couple of hours later, around 9 or 9:30 a.m., they get another 911 call saying that this woman has been found dead in the home. Now, when police come then and they respond, the crime scene's already been cleaned up. Cameras have already been removed. And so, something between the hours of around 5 to 9 a.m., Amber Spradlin was brutally murdered. She was brutally, and when I say that word, I'm not just throwing that word in there. This was a woman who was described as being around 4 foot 10 inches tall. She was a very small, she was what you might call chubby, and I don't want to disparage her in any way, but she was a little bit chubby for her size, but she was very short. And she was described as being a very calm-natured, passive type of person. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't outgoing, talkative, and the type of person who would cause a scene or a stir or a ruckus. I don't know what took place. It was said that Roy Kidd was placed downstairs in a basement bedroom because he was so drunk that they just sent him down there and put him in the bed. Josh Mullins and his girlfriend retired to their bedroom, went to bed. Michael McKinney went to his bedroom. The only other person in the house was MK. Amber was assaulted with a knife, and she was stabbed 11 times at least. This was such a brutal act that the knife broke off inside of her head, inside of her face. So this was I'm sure, and I know that Amber had defensive wounds. So she fought this person. She fought. There had to have been noise unless someone had their hand over her mouth or had her mouth incapacitated in some manner. So people are outraged that the judge would say that this man poses no threat to society. Who knows that? Who knows if this act was something personal that happened between Amber and this man and that he just flew into a rage? Well, he had to have gotten a knife from the kitchen. I don't know how far this couch was located from where the knives were kept, but at some point he either got the knife first with the plan to stab her, or during some altercation he leaves her, goes and gets the knife, and then comes back. So that is details to me as someone from the outside looking in as premeditated, you know. But MK, as far as it's said, the money was offered to the jail, and they said we can't do that. It has to go through the clerk's office. So probably tomorrow, December the 15th, they expect that he will be released from jail. And so I just wanted to come back and do an update on that. There's quite a few other people out there doing stories about Amber, the people who have a lot more connection to Amber's family and can get more details. I'm sure Debbie Hall, her cousin, would provide me with anything that I asked for. I just chose to tell the story from my own thoughts about it and from the story on the Appalachian News Express. Lawyer argued that there was no way that the family could come up with that money, and once again I go back to the fact that a lot of people have expressed in the comments on the Justice for Amber Facebook page, you know, what about my son? What about my cousin or my brother? They're sitting in jail right now on some charge that's not murder. They're sitting in jail right now on some traffic charge or on some unpaid fine charge or whatever it is, and they can't get a bond. They can't get a bond reduced enough to where they can afford it, because maybe they don't have a dental practice, maybe they don't own a very expensive home, several possibly very expensive businesses and homes. So a lot of people are just upset about that, you know, that it seems like prejudicial treatment. Once again, I don't want to say that Judge Coleman is doing anything that he, you know, but a lot of people feel that way. But I just want to do an update about Amber's case. Once anything newer occurs, I'll come back and do a follow-up. I appreciate everyone for taking the time to listen, and I'm going to get on with my Christmas stories in a separate video. Thanks for watching.